Παρακολουθήστε κάθε Τρίτη στις 8 το βράδυ την εκπομπή Ποιητικη Ανθολογια που φιλοξενεί ποιητές, λογοτέχνες, ανθρώπους από το καλλιτεχνικό στερέωμα, τις τέχνες και την εκπαίδευση. Η εκπομπή είναι μια ευγενική προσφορά του Τόνια Jewel and Art Gallery.
Σαν να σμίξουν δυο καρδιές και γίνουν ένα, γεννιέται μια νέα ζωή. Και με πολύ αγάπη, φτερά ανοίγει και ελεύθερη ζει. Κρατάει πάντα μέσα στο μυαλό, μα και στην ψυχή, την τρυφερότητα της μάνας και του πατέρα της στοργή. Μια αγάπη αιώνια, μα και ξεχωριστή, και πάντα ενωμένη θα συνυπάρχουν μαζί. Τόνια Jewel and Art Gallery. Κοσμήματα ζωής.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Σας καλωσορίζουμε στην εκπομπή μας Ποιητικη Ανθολογια. Συνεπείς στο ραντεβού μας ακόμα μια φορά με μια καινούργια καλεσμένη. Σήμερα έχουμε την τιμή εδώ να φιλοξενούμε στο στούντιο του Hellenic TV την κυρία Λίζα Σοκράτους στα ελληνικά, με την οποία θα συνομιλήσουμε στα αγγλικά, λόγω του ότι έχει γεννηθεί και μεγαλώσει εδώ και είναι και διδάσκει και σε κάποιο κολέγιο στα αγγλικά επίσης. Έχει γράψει βιβλία. Το κυριότερο βιβλίο με το οποίο θα ασχοληθούμε σήμερα έχει να κάνει με τον κυπριακό κινηματογράφο και θα μας εξηγήσει η ίδια. Δεν θα χάσουμε καθόλου χρόνο, τη συστήσουμε και να την καλωσορίσουμε στο πρόγραμμά μας και στη συνέχεια να την ανακρίνουμε λίγο για το πώς έχει φτάσει μέχρι εδώ. Lisa Socrates, welcome to Poet Anthology here in Hellenic TV London. I believe you were born and raised in London. You also deal with writing. Most to do with filming in Greek Cypriot, shall I say, Greek Cypriot cinema.
Yes.
Of course, we will give you the chance and you will tell us all about it. Just tell us a few words about your life here, what you do as a lecturer at the Sixth Form College in Newham. Here in London, and how did you reach the point of writing?
Thank you, Silla. You're very welcoming. So I was born in London, in North London specifically, but my studies took me to Buckingham University, to Warwick, London, Birmingham, and then finally back to London where I completed a PhD. Primarily I'm a teacher and educator, and I started my teaching career teaching English and then communications studies, and then in the 1990s with the growth of real media and media industries and a real interest in education to offer a media education, I took on board further training, and I have since 1992 been teaching media studies, then film studies. First of all at Enfield College over in Enfield, Middlesex, and since 2003 I've built a very interesting career at Newham Sixth Form College, where I take the lead for film studies, which has been a growing subject. There's been tremendous interest with students across courses and across ages and stages and various levels with film, and so it's a real passion of mine now to be able to teach film, because I do have an enthusiasm for film, but also to be able to instill that passion for the moving image, for film as a powerful way of telling a story to young people, particularly in East London. Until recently, East London and the borough of Newham, where I teach, has been one of the poorest boroughs in the UK. And I think education plays a vital role in empowering young people to educate themselves and to move socially as well and to better themselves. I think teaching film and media also gives them a tool for telling a story, putting a story together themselves, using images sometimes if they lack the ability to tell it in a story, in a written form. That the images become a way for students to put together an understanding of the world as they see it, as they experience it. So I think it's a privilege and it's a challenge, but it's a passion to teach film. With that in mind, I was appointed principal examiner for A-level film studies 3 years ago. Now, what that means for me is that I can contribute in a very positive way in the way that students are examined, in the way that they study film, in the kinds of films that are on the curriculum, that not just perhaps films that reflect the middle-class way of life, but there are films that represent living in London or coming from a working-class family, or films that represent ethnicity and race as well. Thank you.
Students certainly have a lot to learn from you about especially filming, and how interesting and of course challenging for people from Cyprus if they come to study the concerned studies which you mentioned before, to face Greek Cypriot cinema. And so they will, not only they will enrich their knowledge about cinema and our land, Cyprus mainly, but also they will enlarge their knowledge about cinema in general. You have a lot of things to give to the students. They have a lot to learn from you, I guess. You have already written 4 books, if I am not mistaken. You have brought with you the ones we are going to show. Would you like to show the cover of each one of these, and then we maintain in the book that we are going to deal with in after this. Okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Sulla.
Yes.
So I haven't written all these books, but I've contributed to them, going back to an edited publication in 1990 in Athens. This was a collection of literary work on a range of different writers. Most of them, like Gaddafi and Zaferis, were very, very well known, and
very famous.
Very, very famous. And they are poets that I haven't studied in depth. But my contribution at the time was to try and raise awareness of writers who used Greek but were writing outside of Greece. So the theme was Greek outside Greece, and I wrote an article responding to a novel written by a writer from Athens called Anadenesi. And in fact, her origins were originally from Smyrni, and then Xanthi, and then Cyprus. So that was.
Shall we show the cover?
Yes. So that's
the book.
That's the first one.
And after?
Then a writer I met in Cyprus in the early 1990s called Rama Philippou-Pieridis had settled in Cyprus after living as part of the diaspora community in Alexandria and Cairo. And he came back, and as somebody who was now reflecting on his life and thinking back to those experiences, he wrote Nimes και ιστορίες από την Αίγυπτο. The book then was translated into English by his daughter. However, I had the honor of meeting Mr. Pieridis in Nicosia in the summer of '92, and having read his book in Greek as well, and having understood, as somebody who lives in the diaspora in London, He thought it was appropriate that I write the introduction to his book, so it's some kind of literary introduction to the translation.
So this is the other book,
yes,
as you can see.
And
the third
the
book.
third one is now Yorgos Smoleski's, I think, has become far more well known than when I'd met him more than 20 years ago. And primarily this collection, this anthology, selected
well
poems.
Known.
He is now.
Indeed.
He wasn't when I'd met him at the time.
He was starting.
He was starting out. He'd come back from Russia and settled down in Cyprus, having done his work in Russia. And well, this collection here has the unifying theme of talking about the war in 1974. So most of the poems are talking about themes like the missing persons, the dislocation from his village, his land, and then having to start life again, and the idea of having memories of another time and place. This is the running theme, and being a refugee, the turmoil and the wrench of having a life that's just torn apart.
Majoring his experience about what he lived during the invasion and the facts, and after that, what came after that.
Yes. Now, I know that there have been a lot of poets in Cyprus who wrote about the war, and I think there was a generation so much, but it still makes the individual response, the individual voice, you know, the rhythms and the pain that come through the poetry, it still makes them very powerful. And if you ask me, well, that was such a long time ago, it isn't, because if we look at what's happening globally around us now, this is happening to people now. People are being torn apart from their families, their home that they built with their hands, and people are being, disconnected from a time and place, and having to start again. We see it in Syria, in the Middle East, in Africa. So the themes of war, of being a refugee, of being uprooted.
You had to go through history so that you come to the conclusion how he was, in which state he was when he started his career in this way.
Yes.
Yes.
So, although I was very young at the time, we had members of our family who had gone through the terrifying experiences of 1974. So there was...
For everyone, it was an awful
yes,
era.
I mean, I was living in London, I was very young, but I actually chose to go back and read about it.
You came in touch with the facts through reading and learning
secondary
by
sources.
other people.
Yes, talking to people, talking to family, writers. And that's probably a good link to the book then, Sulla, because the book is all about 1974, creating a new generation of filmmakers.
So are we coming slowly
I could
to your
make
book
that link, really,
concerning the Greek Cypriot cinema, which is what we are going to major in today. Your writing has mostly to do with the Greek Cypriot cinema, which was your main subject also?
For my PhD.
For your PhD.
Yes.
So shall I show this cover of your book? To people who are watching us, and I will say this is very interesting, and I give you the chance to speak about it and tell us how did you come to the decision to write this book.
So there were two reasons. One was I'd been teaching film studies for nearly 20 years, and what is considered valuable mainstream cinema, whether it's art house cinema or blockbusters, was always British cinema, Hollywood, a little bit of European cinema. However, and I think people who enjoy cinema are familiar with mainstream Greek cinema, with maybe Angelopoulos, for example. But my time in Cyprus and my academic research looking at the war and beginning to see that not only poets and writers created a response through literature to the war, but there was a whole generation of young people, young filmmakers who were 8 and 9 in 74, who instead of turning to poetry and other forms of writing, novels and so on, decided they wanted to tell their story of the experiences of the war through film. So my premise was that, on the one hand, there's a great body of filmmaking, and there's emerging cinema, but we don't know what to call it because it's not really Greek, because it's not from Greece, but it comes from this very small island. And sometimes being a small island means that everybody believes maybe that your literature, your culture is small and not worthy of attention.
On the contrary.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, that's what people might believe, but we have a big culture.
Yes, but I have never been to, had never in 1999, 2000, when I was thinking about my thesis, had never seen a modern Greek Cypriot film, had never read a book or an article about a Greek Cypriot film, had never been to a film festival. I'd been to film festivals which were celebrating the Thessaloniki Film Festival, and that was wonderful. So on the one hand, I'm teaching film and I'm asking my students to embrace all stories and all narratives, and to use filmmaking as a way of exploring unknown film. And at the same time, I'm Greek Cypriot, and I don't see, it is not visible or celebrated. And sometimes it has to come in on the back of Greek cinema. So these things, I decided to conduct an academic study, which meant, first of all, looking at the history, going back to the history much further than the 1974 war. But this was my premise, that the war in 1974, quite perversely and through all these negative experiences, had actually generated a new consciousness. And the generation of filmmakers in 1990 and beyond were young people who grew up on the other side of the island and then had to leave. And so the two or three things that informed my study were the idea of memory. So, you're a child and you remember your grandmother and you remember your family, and then suddenly these horrible big events tear you apart. And there's a before and there's an after. There's a time in your life when maybe everybody was together, and there's a time in your life when everything changes.
So that's what this is all about.
Yes, it's about time and memory.
And could you read one episode of this book to be able to get the idea what there is inside? I'm sure you have chosen some pages to read to us
yes, if you like.
Today.
Okay.
And I am sure in the end, after we listen what you have to read to us from here, you tell us where we can find this book.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that
how
would be
useful
great.
it will be for the students and other people.
Okay.
So go ahead, find yourself, which is the main, you can say, piece of the book.
Okay, it's a long book, so I don't want to bore the reader, but the introduction perhaps will just give a bit of a flavour of the intentions of the book.
And usually in the introduction, it's the whole
it
thing
is, isn't
about
it?
it,
yes, it's the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Silla. So, as an event, the 1974 war marks a watershed in the history of modern Cyprus. It has transformed the island's physical spaces, forcing them into a new relationship with time. This book explores how Greek Cypriot cinema, post-1974, offers its own responses to the war, an important moment of cultural development that continues to evolve. In Imagined Communities by Benedict Anderson, he observes that communities are to be distinguished not by their falsity or genuineness, but by the style in which they are imagined. Why has film become a predominant style that represents the experiences of this war? I took my first research trip to Nicosia in Cyprus, where I met many poets and writers and literary critics in 1990. Many had started writing as the conflict unfolded. By the early 1990s, we might say that a tradition of Greek Cypriot literature was in the making. In comparison, I'm just skipping, but in comparison to these literary responses, it would take 2 decades for the war and its experiences to be visualized on the cinematic screen with any comparable momentum.
That's, in general, one idea what it is about,
yes.
what this is all about. Do you feel much more mature after writing these books, and especially after majoring in the Greek Cypriot cinema? What is the feeling?
Feeling is, I think the feeling, it gave me two things. One was an opportunity to actually investigate in a more in-depth way the history of the island, going back even to the colonial history in the 1960s, which enabled me to understand why my parents left Cyprus as well, because of the colonial conflicts. And
it was a chance,
the
wasn't
1950s.
it, so that you live again? What happened then?
Well, to really find out. So it was quite personal. It was quite a personal project. And the second thing is, quite curiously, I think this is the only academic book, not an article, but a whole monograph in mainstream academic publishing.
It is a monograph, isn't it, after all?
Yes, but it's the first book from cover to cover that just focuses on trying to define Greek Cypriot cinema as distinct from any other cinema, British, Greek, American.
Have you read any criticism concerning the book? What were the ideas of those who criticized this?
Yes.
Tell us in
There's
general.
been more recently Filmicon, which is a mainstream academic study of Greek culture and Greek, has recently reviewed the book, and I think the feedback was that it was a very good contribution to an understanding of what small cinema or nation cinema can produce, because when a small island is constantly struggling to define its political identity, as it's continuing to do now still, those concepts, nation and identity and national identity, are still important. They're more important maybe for a small island and its survival because of its geographical location, its size, and sometimes not always being taken seriously. So I think acknowledging that it has such a rich culture.
It's mostly a tourist area, resort, and maybe people would think that it hasn't actually have a history of culture, which is not true.
Not true. In fact, in the 5 years where I had research trips to Cyprus, funded by UCL, where I was teaching and also writing my doctorate, I found out that there are about 12 film festivals every year, from International Short Film Festival to the Documentary Film Festival to Cyprus Days to alternative cinema, experimental cinema, more than I know of even in London sometimes. So
would you advise students to follow this special lectures concerning the Greek Cypriot cinema?
If you're interested in making a short film, why not go and attend the Short Film Festival in Cyprus, usually in Limassol.
Are they interested? A lot of them, Cypriots, come to you?
No, nobody comes to me. Nobody comes to me to ask me about Greek Cypriot film. But I was passionate about writing its story and making it exist. And
yes.
I could have had funding to write about Hollywood, but I didn't want to. What was the point of writing about something that already exists and everybody knows?
Yes. Okay.
So I took a risk.
Yes, you are true.
Well, it's not a contribution to knowledge otherwise.
Yes. It mostly has to do with your personal experience and what you wanted to go through and meet your ancestors.
I guess so. But also I'm passionate about education And I want to bring new things onto the agenda. There's no point in spending 5 years writing about the stars of the golden screen in classical Hollywood, which I teach every day.
Yeah.
And you only need to go to the BFI, British Film Institute library. There's thousands of books. So what contribution do we make to our knowledge of the world and to culture if we keep writing about the same things? Probably that might have made me more popular, but it doesn't matter to me. You asked me, what do I feel about writing this? I feel that I was very brave, sometimes had very little support or financial support, but I was very driven to try and find the academic language and space to write this. And it's actually a philosophical inquiry as well, because I use Gilles Deleuze, I use very complex ideas to be able to talk about this small island and its cinema.
Shall I dare to ask you if the British were interested in the book, in learning something of it? And
well, my publishers, Peter Lang, embraced the book. I'm very grateful to them. They're academic publishers in Oxford, and they supported the book from the word go. And the editor there was very helpful. Yes, because that's what they do.
Yes. So this is our culture. And once more, we say that this is what's more important about it, that we continue our culture in this way. Either in Greek or in English, where we live in England, we also need to speak their language. So we give also chance to British people to get to know our culture.
Absolutely, Sulla. Yes, I couldn't agree more.
In this way. Don't know how much time we still have. We should ask. I believe we still have 2-3 minutes. So let us say, in general, what is the conclusion out of our talk today? I would like to thank you, first of all, for being with us and have the opportunity to explain and present this book, which is important for the Greek Cypriots, their history and their related cinema, of course. And I hope we will have the chance in the future to talk more about, in general, filming, which you deal with. Once more, I thank you for being here. Of course, I would like you to give your message to people who are watching us now.
Thank you, Sulla. Well done, Hellenic TV, because it plays such a vital role here in offering a wonderful program to people who want to feel connected, both with Greece and Cyprus. And as somebody who's passionate about the media, it does mobilise, it does make people feel that they're part of a community.
And in brackets, I want to ask, this book they can find also through you?
Amazon and Google.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's important. Maybe they will try to go and find it. If they know, have some information is better.
Thank you. Yes, if you would like to read it, and please let me know what you think. We can continue the dialogue. Thank you.
So I hope so. We continue the dialogue. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us, watching our feature tonight, and our guest, which was Lisa Socrates, and I thank her once more for being here. I thank you also for your attention. Κυρίες και κύριοι, ευχαριστώ. Πιστεύω ότι τα λόγια περιττεύουν. Οι περισσότεροι από εμάς ζουν εδώ στο Λονδίνο και δεν χρειάζεται να μεταφράσουμε άμεσα αυτά που ακούσαμε. Πιστεύω καταλάβαμε στην αγγλική γλώσσα περί τίνος πρόκειται. Θα σας ευχαριστήσω που ήσασταν και απόψε μαζί μας. Ανανεώνουμε το ραντεβού μας για μια ακόμη εκπομπή της Ποιητικής Ανθολογίας για την ερχόμενη εβδομάδα. Καλό σας βράδυ.
Παρακολουθήστε κάθε Τρίτη στις 8 το βράδυ την εκπομπή Ποιητικη Ανθολογια που φιλοξενεί ποιητές, λογοτέχνες, ανθρώπους από το καλλιτεχνικό στερέωμα, τις τέχνες και την εκπαίδευση. Η εκπομπή είναι μια ευγενική προσφορά του Τόνια Jewel and Art Gallery.
Σαν να σμίξουν δυο καρδιές και γίνουν ένα, γεννιέται μια νέα ζωή. Και με πολύ αγάπη, φτερά ανοίγει και ελεύθερη ζει. Κρατάει πάντα μέσα στο μυαλό, μα και στην ψυχή, την τρυφερότητα της μάνας και του πατέρα της στοργή. Μια αγάπη αιώνια, μα και ξεχωριστή, και πάντα ενωμένοι θα συνυπάρχουν μαζί. Tonya Jewel and Art Gallery. Κοσμήματα ζωής.